Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Cupixel Studio and welcome to our Learn with Michael's class. Today, I'm going to show you how you can practice sketching and also create beautiful artwork of an eye with Cupixel Smart Trace technology. So I will walk you through everything from start to finish. First things first, I would ask you to download the Cupixel app if you haven't already. And once you're in, we have a promo code right here, so you can get access to everything and get the full experience. But while you do that, I just want to say hello, Happy New Year. I am joined by Nick, who is on cameras. And I'm also joined by Shirley, who is monitoring the chat. So she'll let me know if anyone has any questions for me specifically about the app or what I'm doing here. But if you have any questions about the app and how subscription works and all that good stuff, Shirley will be there to help you out. Also, you will see a little question mark icon at the top right of your screen within the app. That is our support team. You can contact them if you have any technical issues. But I'm super excited to share this one with you because, it's the new year and, it's the perfect time to learn new skills or expand upon our skills and improve them. And this is one of my favorite practices. I've been drawing eyes since I could draw. I don't know why. I've so gravitated towards drawing eyes. And with this technology, uh, it's very, very helpful and it's great practice. And it's a lot of fun personally. So I'm excited to share it with you. If you nail eyes, you nail a portrait. That is, sorry?
Is there a problem with hearing? Ask if there is a problem to hear you.
Is there a problem hearing me?
I can hear you
No?
perfectly.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Chanel. Okay. Oh, all right. All right, great. So I think we can dive in. Actually, before we do that, let me tell you what I'm going to be using for this class, this little project today. I've got my Cupixel device stand out in front of me with my phone already on it. The app is open. This is for use of our Smart Trace technology, and I will get into that in a second when we actually dive into tracing. But in addition to my device stand, which is probably the most important thing, I have just a square piece of mixed media or sketching paper, and I have this black paper for a reason, or for a few reasons. One, so you can see my paper against this white table, and two, so the app can see my paper against this white table. Again, I'll explain that in a second, but other tools, I have a couple pencils in front of me. I've got an HB pencil, so like your classic #2 pencil for tracing, and then when we get into shading and blending and all that good stuff, we have some other tools. I have a B and a 2B pencil. Uh, Not that you need more than just your HB pencil. Really quick, the HB and B and H and all that good stuff. B is like bold, kind of. Think of B, bold. And when you go up the spectrum of B, starting from B all the way to like 10B, the graphite is darker, softer, and you can create darker, more, intense shadows with it. So you can always just use the HB pencil and apply different amounts of pressure when it comes to shading, but again, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. I also have a 2H pencil. It's totally not necessary, but it might come in handy for our, fine details at the very end. And then I also have a couple of blending sticks, blending tools, whatever you call them. This is just to kind of blend my shading together, soften my marks. Again, totally not necessary, but if you don't have these are one of my favorites. If you don't have this, you can use like a Q-tip. You can use a paper towel. You can even use your finger. I wouldn't really recommend it because our fingers are, I hate to say, kind of oily, and you don't want to ruin all the hard work that you just did. So gloves work great if you have gloves lying around. I also have a kneaded eraser that's seen better days and a regular eraser just in case. I love a kneaded eraser because it can really soften your lines without completely erasing. And if you want to kind of go for a realistic look, that is always super helpful because you can get rid of those harsh lines. Okay, I think I've gone over everything, so I think we're ready to dive in, assuming that everyone has the app in front of them. Um, if not, you can just, listen to this, listen to me, watch, take some notes, I guess, and then come back to it another time. This, of course, will be up on YouTube tomorrow. So, shall we dive in? I think we're good. Am I missing anything, Shirley?
No?
Okay, Shirley keeps me in line. Okay, so got the app open, and this is the main feed. So this should be the first thing that you see on the main feed after you've logged in and put in your promo code and everything. But what we're going to do is we're going to ignore all the content that we have here because you have the artist talking to you in real time, guiding you through your very own experience. So what we're going to do is we're going to tap this icon at the center of the screen at the bottom, My Studio, and we are going to go to the gallery. So really quick, you can see at the top of the screen, we've got 3 tabs: gallery, photos, and text. In the gallery, you'll find a ton of artworks that we've licensed from other artists or that we've made in-house ourselves for you to just get the feel of, the technology and how tracing works. You can upload your own photo. So if you want to go ahead and draw your own eye or your friend's eye, your loved one's eye, whatever, you can do that as well. And then we also have an opportunity for text. You can add some text. And I see, oh my God, so funny, Nancy from our last Michael's class. Nancy, if you're here, hello. So let's go back to the gallery because I have uploaded this photo of an eye for you all if you want to follow along with the same photo. I love using a photo with Smart Trace, especially when I'm aiming for realism. It's, the ultimate photo reference and ultimate photo reference tool. So I think if we're ready, I'm going to select what I want to trace. When I see that green check mark, I can press start. It's going to take me to the trace screen. And now what I'm going to have to do here is, oh, never mind. I thought I was going to have to move my phone just a bit. Nick, do you mind? Just a little bit. See that corner in the bottom left? Yep. Was just outside of my screen. So that's the perfect opportunity to tell you how Smart Trace works. Smart Trace is that icon at the top left of your screen. If you see that it's green, you know that you are good to go. If all 4 corners of your paper are in frame and they're visible to your camera, meaning, it's not a white paper on a white table. That's why I have this black paper. The app is able to find your paper, superimpose the image right onto it, and we can get going. So if anything moves for any reason, as long as all 4 corners are there, it'll just realign. You have a transparency bar here to control your opacity. I like to keep it kind of somewhere in the middle. And personally, I like to trace looking from the photo, but I went ahead and I uploaded some layers for you here that we will explore a little bit more when we get into shading. But we have a grayscale layer. We have a tones layer that really just simplifies the shadows and the highlights in the photo. We've got just a simple digital outline, so if that's easier for you to trace, you can use that. We have a midtone area, and then we have the outline and the midtone combined. But like I said, I love to use a photo, and I'm just going to pinch the screen and zoom in. Actually, I'm going to drag this just a bit, use the drag feature, tap that. I see the purple icons and border, so I know when I pinch, I'm not zooming in. I'm just going to pinch it in so that it's not too big, but also big enough so you can all see what I'm doing. All right, now from here, pinch the screen to zoom in, and we're going to start tracing. I know that a lot was covered in the last 10 minutes. And so if you're joining us a little bit later and you're behind, just, let Shirley know in the chat and I can walk you through that again, no problem. Excuse me, I need to take a sip of water. Okay, here we go. I have my HB pencil for tracing, and I'm going to look through my screen, and I am just going to make that connection with my pencil. I see it in my screen here. And I'm just going to start tracing. And if you are unsure of where to start or what to trace, start with the most important part, the iris and the pupil, and take it nice and slow. You don't want to put too much pressure and, pick up your pencil a bit. Have it be nice and loose because this is just the first step. You don't want your hand cramping up. Nick, can you see that okay? All right. So I'm going to apply a bit more pressure than I usually would so you can all see it nice and clearly. But I would advise trying to keep a light hand because it's more comfortable. And that's good. All right. Yeah, it's more comfortable. And I just find that you get, typically you get a cleaner outline, even though you have all these kind of like sketchy lines. But I'm going to zoom in even more and show you something that I know can be kind of confusing. So the difference between a line and a shadow is, well, there's a fine line in between them, not to, no pun intended. But basically what a line is in a photo, so if I'm pointing at this right here, the crease in the eye, uh, it might look like a line, but that's actually just really, really, really condensed shadow. But then you see a line here, like this edge, right? The edge of the top eyelid, it's not as defined because you have the lashes there and you don't see a super defined edge or shadow. So we can kind of simplify this just by finding the general edge. And then over here, we could see it a bit clearer. Connect that to the outer corner. And I'm not worrying about highlights or shadows, besides, shadows that look like lines. That makes sense. I'm not worrying about any of that yet. Just getting my lines, tracing all those edges, taking it nice and slow.
I have one user who cannot find where you are next.
Okay, so Sherry, hi Sherry. Where I am at, I will show you in just a second, but if you open the app and you see the main feed, so you see at the top it says live, you'll see an icon or quite a few icons at the bottom of your screen. Tap the center icon that says, it has like a little plus sign and it says My Studio, and then tap Gallery. And then you'll see the eye photo right there. You can select that and then press start. And then with your paper in frame of your phone elevated on a stand or a cup or anything like that, you should be good to go. But I will walk you through that in just 1 second. But if you do have it without me showing you, let us know. Guess I got distracted. I forgot to tell you guys what I was doing over here, but that's okay. What I did was I just kind of marked some shadows, some areas where it's just so small. Um, it's hard to see those differences, but I'm marking those highlights, just kind of outlining them, just getting the general shape. But I will say it's easy to get carried away at this first step. I'm kind of calling myself out now. We're going for realism, but we're not making a carbon copy, So let's just keep going, shall we? We've got the overall, shape of the eye. Now let's move on to those eyelids again. So this very defined line, which is just very condensed shadow. Bring that out. And then let's do the lower lash line. Again, it can be hard to define this line here because it's not a very defined line. Lashes can be a good indicator, where they're growing from, that you can kind of mark that with your pencil. But we are going to be softening this up so that we don't see those lines when we start shading. Have it be nice and diffused. So I forgot the pupil. Let's go ahead and add that in. Erase that. And then I will also outline this big highlight here. Bring my transparency bar down just a bit. And that shadow at the top, the iris. Bring it back down. And then all those details in there, the reflection of the eyelashes, I'm going to do that later. But now I'm just going to kind of mark or outline the different values within the eye. So you see around the edge, it's a very light eye, a very light color, but you still see a differentiation between the colors. So you see this outer edge. What I'm going to do is just kind of follow it roughly. Just outline it a bit so I know to add more pressure when I'm shading here. And then same thing around the edge of the pupil. I can define it a little bit more, Nick, if you can't see it well. Okay. Doesn't need to be perfect at this point. But I'm just going to be focusing on the eye itself. I'm not going to worry about that eyebrow or anything like that. But I think now what we can do is we can kind of start to define the shadows a little bit by outlining them. But first, let's finish these lash lines here. I'm not going to do the lashes now. That's something I like to leave for the end, potentially with my 2H pencil or just my HB pencil, so you can get nice, crisp lines. And then you can see underneath the eye, we don't want the eye to look like it's just kind of flat, just laying there on the paper. We want to give it some dimension around the eye. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to kind of mark this area underneath the eye. I see that there's like a shadow here. And at this point is where the other layers can come in handy for you. So if you tap through to tones, you'll see that all the shadows, the darkest shadows around the eye here, it's simplified. We can kind of use this general shape to mark that we should be shading there. And then over here as well. And you can see it slowly gets lighter and lighter. We can do the same thing at the top of the eye as well. Kind of outline this section here so I know not to shade too much there. And then I can kind of just roughly mark that that's where my shadows end. Now, this is not something I typically like to do in my own practice, but I know that it's a great help when you are shading. If you're not going to keep your phone on Smart Trace the whole time, you absolutely can, by the way. I just know that if this is your first time using the app, or if you're somewhat new to the app, drawing and shading and blending with the phone in front of your face or in between you and your paper can be quite difficult. So just wanted to show you that you can use these layers to just kind of map out what you're going to do next. And that's what I did just there. So we can do the same thing within the eye itself, the white of the eye. You can see that there is a shadow edge here. And even though that's the white of the eye, you can clearly see that that's not going to be the lightest part of our drawing here. So we tap through again to the photo itself. You can start to notice these things within the photo if you just kind of squint and look at it. That, what you might think would be pure white, I'm not going to do any shading there whatsoever, is actually quite dark or in comparison to other parts of the image. So when it comes to sketching, whether it's an eye or a person or an animal or whatever it is, still life, you name it, my greatest tip for you is to find your darkest dark and your lightest light. So you might not be able to tell just by looking at the photo. Like I said, especially if you're kind of new to this or if you're trying to learn new things or expand upon your skills, uh, using the tones layer again can help you out a lot. So I can see here that in my pupil, and maybe again, not something I usually do, but it's a good practice. You can kind of just roughly shade in those areas that you know are going to be the darkest. So pupil, this part in the crease right here, and then that lash line here. So we kind of outlined that already. You can see it kind of goes into the eye itself. It's out around here. And yeah, again, like I said, I'm not going to worry about the eyebrow or anything like that. I can see that more or less everything is where it should be. And I've got my lightest lights outlined, which would be that part of the white eye, that part of the white of the eye. And then this highlight within the eye. And then this one, this part right over here, that's actually going to be the lightest light. It's a very, very subtle difference, but if you zoom in, you can see this is kind of like a light gray, and that is just pure white. So I can kind of use that as a guide. If I look at my pupil and I look at my top lash line, and everything else is not as dark as that, we're good. And if I look at this little highlight here and everything else is not as light as that, we're on the right track. So now that I am done tracing, I am going to put my phone to the side, but I'm still going to be using this reference photo. Yes.
Say that the device stand for everyone who becomes a member, we send it for free, and if someone wants to create with you now, they can try it on the club.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Shirley. Something I want to mention, and I should have mentioned before, this device stand, if you did not purchase it for this class, and you continue with your free trial into a membership, you will receive a device stand for free. It's included with your membership. And by the way, membership is for 4 people. So you and 3 friends or 3 family members, you can share across that. But yeah, if you just started your free trial today and you stick with the trial into your first month of a paid membership, we will send you this for free, no shipping or anything like that. You just provide your address and it'll appear at your door. But if you don't have the device stand and you want to utilize Smart Trace now, or in the meantime, while you wait for your device stand, there are options. Basically, what you need to do is just kind of have your phone elevated. So I can show you here. Got a large coffee cup. I'm going to put my device stand to the side, Nick. Is that okay? All right. We're going to ignore the fact that there is coffee in here. Pardon my reach. Nobody? Okay. You can just place your phone flat on something tall. And then you can use the wide angle camera if your phone has that feature. You can see here, everything is aligned to where it should be. Another thing that you can do is you can work with Smart Trace off. So you can tap Smart Trace and you'll just get a flat or a parallel projection. You can use the drag feature to position it on your paper manually. The one thing about working with Smart Trace off is that it does not automatically realign if you move. It's not tracking or detecting your paper or anything like that. And keep in mind that it does not adjust the angle of your image or your outline, whatever it is you're tracing. That's something that Smart Trace does. If your phone is at a 45-degree angle on the app, it's going to adjust the proportions in your projection onto the paper so that when you draw it, it's precise, it's accurate, everything is proportionate, and yeah, How many words can I say to describe, accuracy? But that is pretty much it. After you use Smart Trace and you exit, you will get a time lapse that you can save to your phone. You can always go back to it later on as well. If you do skip, you can find that on the main feed. Just go down and you'll see, where'd it go? Where'd it go? Your time lapses. Perfect. So you can share that wherever, wow, your friends, all that good stuff. See your artwork come to life right in front of you. So, by the way, Sherry, was it Sherry? Sherry, I'm sorry if I butchered that, but this was the area I was talking about here. My studio. I want to tap that, go to gallery, and you'll see this photo that I am using. So I think, oh, what am I doing here? Okay, go back to this. What I want to do now is just use this as my reference as I begin shading. So I'm going to put this to the side. I'll take a little sip while I'm here, I guess. Why not? And then for a snick, I just want to make sure that this is not in the way. Good? Okay. Okay. So when you select that outline again, see that green check mark? We're not going to go to start this time. Closer to me. Oh, okay. Great. Okay. I tape it so that it just stays at bay. Good? So the right. All right. I'll pop this right here. When you have that green check mark and your photo is selected, your outline is selected, you can tap it again and you have the photo here so you can kind of look at it as a reference for everything that you are about to do next. Something that I love to do is use the grayscale layer. So just tap layer. It should be the layer right underneath the colored photo. And this helps with shading with pencil because, well, it simplifies everything into black and white. So sometimes it's hard to kind of translate the lightness or darkness of a color into a shade of gray, if that makes sense. So using this grayscale layer should be quite helpful. So that's what I like to do. And now from here, I can actually put my HB pencil to the side. And if you only have this pencil, you can definitely continue using this. Like I said, when you want to apply a darker shadow, you just apply more pressure. But I'm going to go in with this B pencil, which is the very first of the B pencils, from B all the way to like 10B. And I'm going to start again at the center. First, though, I'm going to take my kneaded eraser and just take a small bit of it. And I just want to simplify these sections within the iris that I outlined. So I can still see them. Simplify around my highlight as well. And I just kind of like to stipple the kneaded eraser just to pick up extra pigment. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to start shading around the iris with a very light hand. It's a lot easier to build your shadow than it is to kind of soften it. But as I approach the edge, the distinction between the lash line and the iris, I apply a bit more pressure. I'm just going to keep going around the edges and just shade quick, light, circular, and back and forth motions. But I just want to make sure that my pressure is consistent. When I'm working on one value, one area of shadow, that doesn't really change too much. It doesn't get lighter or darker within the section that you're working on. Just keep a consistent pressure and use consistent motions. Try not to switch it up too much. but it's okay because we have our blending tool. But even when you are using a blending tool, your really harsh lines that you applied a lot of pressure with, it can be hard to soften. So now I'm just kind of bringing this up and I'm switching up my technique just a bit. So I'm still doing like the back and forth circular motions, but instead of going around the eye, I'm kind of following the outline, the cool, funky pattern that this outer ring is making. And I'm going to do the same thing around the pupil. Again, you can kind of redefine this edge since I know this is going to be a lot darker. The darkest.
Very important to the place where you hold the pencil.
Is there importance to the place where I hold the pencil? Like at what point in the pencil? That is such a great question. I have been told that I hold a pencil quite weird. Quite weird. I can't speak today. I don't know if you guys have noticed that. I never occurred to me. I don't think I hold it very weird. Um, but I would say the farther down that you hold the pencil, the more you're working like with your wrist, and the looser and lighter your marks will be. And I actually find it might be a little weird at first if you're used to holding your pencil all the way up here, but I find that you get a lot more control, specifically just with the payoff that you're getting on your paper. But if you're holding it up here, you'll notice that even when I try to use a light hand, my shading is much, much darker. So fantastic question. Um, I just don't want to say hold the pencil exactly like I am because apparently that's strange. I think I hold a pencil just fine, though, personally. All right, so I think I'm just going to continue shading all throughout, and we'll do some blending at the end or before we move on to our really dark shadows. So I'm just going to keep going with the same pencil, my B pencil. And so since we're here within the eye itself, let's start to build the shadow within the white of the eye. So we can see, if you look over here at that inner corner of the eye before we even get to that, what is that, a tear duct? I don't know. The shadow within the white of the eye is the darkest right there. So we can start shading there. Kind of just follow the shape. Kind of soften it and bring it out as we reach kind of like the center. And then what I'm going to do is actually erase this little outline here because I don't want there to be a harsh edge. I want it to be seamless. I'm going to just lightly shade around that area. And I don't even know if you can see what I'm getting on my paper right now. It's very, very subtle. But I am applying a little bit more pressure towards the top edge here. And then over here, we actually have a shadow from the lashes kind of casting on this outer corner of the white of the eye. So I'm going to start shading with light pressure the same way I did on the other side. I can bring it down to that edge. I don't feel like I need to erase that one. Oops. But we're going to apply more pressure up here, I'm going to follow the direction of that. I just shade that in nicely. Then we can clean it up and redefine later on. But now I'll just take, again, super, super light hand, just shade along the bottom edge and then diffuse this edge a bit by just going in with an even lighter hand, if that's even possible. I see right here, kind of like in the center, I went with too heavy of a hand, and I just want everything to be seamless, you know, just a seamless blend from dark to light in every little section that you're working in. Because again, no lines, right? What you might see as a line or what might appear as a line, it's actually just a shadow that is, you know, slowly or actually in a very small space diffusing into light. So even if you were to take a microscope to the crease of her eye here, you will see the different variations in tone and all that good stuff. Now I'm just building up the shading in the top lid. I know that since I marked this area in the center, I'm going to have a pretty consistent shadow color all throughout the top lid. Again, you can kind of define other edges with more pressure because I know this lash line is going to be a lot darker. I can see here at that inner corner, start to see a highlight develop in that inner corner. Add some shading above the crease of the eye as well. Again, so that we know we don't have a floating eye that's just stuck to our paper. We want to create dimension, not just within the eye, but around it. And again, seeing those edges that I kind of mapped out for myself, you know, that I can kind of bring my shadows or my shading out beyond the eyelid as well. And this area I marked, I'm going to apply more pressure. Keep our shading more condensed. And we can diffuse it by softening it as we bring it out. But really anything that you do with art, in my opinion, specifically, you know, drawing, sketching, this kind of practice to achieve, you know, the look of like, you know, dimension and depth and, you know, create a realistic look and feel, layering and repeating steps, just going back and just doing it all over again, but just a little less and less each time, or a little bit more in certain areas, you know? Because I know we only have an hour and there's a lot to go over. Typically something like this, you know, it might take you anywhere between 10 and 10 minutes, 10 and 4, you know, no, 10 minutes and 4 hours, you know, depending on how much of a perfectionist you are, or what scale you're doing this on. You know, mine's quite large. So you can all see it, of course. But, you know, there's a lot to cover in terms of like how the app works and stuff like that. So I just want to shout that out now. Keep in mind that if by the end of this class, this evening or this afternoon, yours does not look, you know, realistic or complete, keep in mind that you just continue those steps. You just repeat them. And watch tomorrow, that's right. Watch tomorrow. Also, on the app itself, like I said earlier, we have so many artist-led experiences with people like myself and all of our other artists, um, which is basically like this, except not live and in real time, on demand instead. We have so many with sketching specifically, but also one from an eye. That was actually a live that we did on our app. We go live once a week. We actually are going live tonight. If anyone wants to stick around and join me for that, I'll be going pretty much right after this too, which is funny. But I have a replay of a live experience in which I kind of walked people through sketching an eye from scratch. So you get the full tutorial on like shading and blending that I'm giving you now. Of course, not in real time, but you can always follow along to that if you forget something or whatever. And you can always reach out to us too, by the way, with any questions about the app or about art in general. If you need some advice, I'm happy to help. If you just want to chat and say hi, I'd love that too. I'm just continuing to shade underneath the eye. I don't want to bring it out too far. But right around here, I think is good. And then before I get to those really, really dark areas, I think let's blend this out a bit. Well, first, I'm just extending my shadows to the inner corner so I can define this highlight area. And I'm doing so by shading around it. Bring this up just a bit. I'm bringing this up and out just a bit. All right, so at this point, I'm going to go in with my little blending tool here. Mine is clean and ready to go. See, this one's like a little dirty. If that happens, if you have one that's been used, it's seen better days, sandpaper is great to kind of just smooth it out, get that dirty paper off because it's basically paper. It's just paper, tightly wound up. I'm going to use the tip of this for areas that I want to be careful, like this part right here. And first, I'm just going to kind of go over everything. Just follow the shape this so I can keep it nice and defined. And same idea as with when we are shading, a light hand is great because you don't want this to only blend out in certain areas. You can take what you have left on your tool to bring that shadow in and create that really cool look pattern within the iris. Then we can do the same thing, this part here. Just follow the shape. And sometimes I like to just take a scrap paper or the paper that I'm using underneath this paper, just get the excess off before I go into an area that I know is kind of light. I don't want to darken it up too much. So that is good. And up here, you can see that even though I'm shading in the same way, because I applied a bit more pressure up there, that might appear darker, and that's what we want. I'm going to move on to the white of the eye, so I'm just making sure I don't have too much here on my tool. And I'm going to start those outer corners again, but in those areas that I know are slightly darker, and keep my blending more contained. Kind of just going over those areas. Then after wiping, bring down the shadow that you just kind of blended into those areas that we left alone. And you can see that highlight. You don't have to erase anything. Be very careful around this area because I know that this section right here, that teeny tiny little section, is going to be our lightest highlight. I'm going to avoid it like the plague. But if anything happens, we have our eraser. All right, looking good. And at this point, maybe you want to evaluate what you've shaded and what you've blended so far. I'm going to keep going because I know we're a little pressed for time, but seeing the white of the eye compared to the iris and then comparing that to the photo here, I can see that I can definitely use some darkening up within the iris around that outer edge specifically. So maybe I'll keep that in mind, do that a little bit later. Or excuse me, later, but I'm gonna just move on and continue blending out my shadows. So we'll move on to the top eyelid. Again, trying to keep my blending contained. You just go right on top of that lash line, actually, with what we have so far shaded there. And we can switch over to a slightly cleaner side. Just quickly blend and just kind of follow the shape here. Not to do circular motions or anything like that. Follow the shape of the eyelid itself.
Thank you for an amazing class and for breaking it down.
Oh, who said that? Sue said, I don't know if anyone can hear Shirley, but Sue said, thank you for breaking this down. And an amazing class. You made my day. You really did. I'm so glad that this is helpful for you. And thank you for saying that. I really appreciate that a lot. I keep going. There's like, I know sometimes it's like, of course, to me, this is simple. I mean, I've been doing this forever. I get paid to do it, but sometimes it's so simple that like, I can't stress it enough that it's simple, that it does not appear that way anymore. I don't know if that made any sense whatsoever, but let me just say this, practice makes perfect, or progress, I should say. The more you do this, like I said earlier, you don't have to make this on such a large scale. Doing it on a large scale so you can all see, but on a smaller scale, you could fit 4 or 5 of these eye sketches within your paper if you use the drag feature and you shrink it, If you drew an eye every day, not saying you have to, by the end of January, I'm sure that you'll see very clear, very, very clear progress. And if not, I will sell you my car. I don't know. It's not that great of a car. Yeah, the more you do anything, especially in art, similar to how no matter what, if you want something realistic, you just layer, you just keep doing it. You just keep trying it. You can try different techniques each time. This is, the techniques that work for me. Another artist might say that this is the wrong way to do things, There's no right or wrong way in art, if you ask me. So I'm just sharing the way that, I found made the most sense to me, and if that works for you, then I'm thrilled. Because if you, I don't know, eyes, I feel like eyes are so popular. Um, because, well, they're the window to the soul, and they can tell us a lot about a person and how they're feeling. You even see where they've been, what they're thinking. If you want to get into portrait art, expand your skills there. If you ask me, you know how to do the eyes, you're already halfway there because it's the it's the hardest, I wouldn't say the hardest part to nail, but it's the most important thing to nail, to communicate, who it is that you're drawing, what they're feeling. And I would definitely encourage you to, expand, try different photos. If you are gonna, do this again, which, I think you definitely should if you want to improve your realism, your drawing skills, or if you just really want to just make a beautiful eye. Um, Try different photos, uh, different ages. This is clearly like a very, feminine eye. If I did something a little bit more masculine, it would be very different. If I, you know, drew an eye that was 20 years older, it would be very different. Or 20 years younger, it would be very, very different. She's just kind of looking straight ahead. What if her eyebrow was like this? Or what if she was crying? Or what if she was happy? These things make a huge difference in the subject matter that you're drawing. So I encourage you to do it more, try different things, because that's how you improve. And that's how you find your own ways to do things. All right, so at this point, I'm just going to take what I have on my tool to kind of blend this area a bit, avoiding those highlight areas as much as I can. And I know I'm going to have to darken that area as well. But now that I've kind of shaded in that first, I won't say first layer because it's not like we're going to go over everything here, just define those darker areas. I'm going to take my 2B pencil. I'm going to go ahead and do that now. So I'm going to start at that lash line, and I'm just going to follow that edge once again, really kind of shade it in. And then I can apply more pressure at the very top of the iris, so I can see right next to each other, the iris is much darker. And of course, that would mean I'd have to go back and, kind of darken the rest of the iris, but I will do that at some point. Just go and shade the pupil. Something like this, something so dark like this, I would likely, typically gravitate towards like a 6B or anything like that. Or even like a marker, just to really kind of differentiate this shadow or this shade from the others. But see the difference that that makes. All right, add some shading in here. And just around those edges for the most part. It's okay if you don't create an exact replica of the tear duct. I promise, it's okay. You can see it's definitely darker than the white of the eye. And because it's a lot easier to darken something than it is to lighten something, just apply more pressure here. So I can shade that out or blend that out nicely in a little bit. And go back and kind of start to further define the shadows underneath the eye because it's not just one shade here. You can see got slightly darker line right here. We have 5 more minutes. All right. Darken the lower lash line up here. You can see that it kind of diffuses when you get to kind of like the center of the pupil. All right, let's blend and then we'll add our lashes. Oh, I'm using the wrong one. Whoops. Yeah, I know. So we are approaching the end of this class. So I just want to say now, first of all, thank you so much for joining. Second of all, I know this was quick. Well, it was quick for me. Um, we have so many sketching experiences that cover, the same techniques and the same concepts that you can absolutely check out after this if you want to keep going. Quite a few that I've done myself. So I can guarantee you'll get more or less the same advice, just, different subject matter maybe. Like I said, I have that live replay of the eye I did from scratch, so no tracing involved. Do I trace most of my drawings? I would say, yeah. I mean, before, of course, I didn't have anything to trace with before I found Cupixel. Um, and I would say there have been times that I've, and like, I'm gonna do this free-handed because I can, and I still can just fine. Uh, but it'd be silly almost not to, you know what I mean? If I'm, there's not enough time in a day, okay? There's not a lot of time in a day. And if I'm working on my own artwork or commission artwork or something like that, so artwork for someone else that they requested, it's almost silly to not get a jump start on that project because it's just the first step, Of course, having a good composition and accurate proportions and everything is very important. It is just the first step. It's the foundation to your artwork. So everything that you do after is all you. But now let's just add some little lashes and start anywhere in between that section that we shaded in. And I would say lashes, I think they could be the hardest part, honestly, because it just requires you to just not really think about it, let go of some control, and understand that lashes all don't grow out, Natural lashes, they're not false lashes. They're not in a perfect straight line. They overlap. And you can add this forever and ever and ever. The lash is not really something that I like to look at the photo for because it'll be very, very easy to get carried away trying to replicate it exactly. But you can kind of go back in at the base of the lashes and kind of thicken those, especially if your model is wearing some mascara. You see that it's kind of thick at the base. Yeah, the lines go in different directions. I could do that forever and ever. So stop myself and move on to the bottom lash line here. See that they are similar to the top lash line. Lashes get fuller and longer towards the outer corner.
Where they can show you their drawing.
Oh my gosh, where can you show the drawing? I would love to see your drawings. Please share with me on Spaces. So within each experience, each artist-led experience within the app, you have a Spaces feed. Because you had your own little private experience today and we used My Studio, you can go back to Trace. And this is how you can get to Spaces. Back to Trace, go to Spaces, take a photo and upload it and share. As long as you signed into the app with your email, which you should have with your, if you're using the promo code, you are able to post on Spaces and interact with other people, comment on other people's work. And of course, I would love to see your drawings. That's my favorite part about this app. It's my favorite part about this job that I'm so lucky to have, is seeing what everyone creates along with me. So please feel free, if not today, tomorrow, whenever you decide to share or decide to draw another eye, I would love to see it. And don't be shy. Please don't be shy. We have a very, if I do say so myself, a very, very, very encouraging and supportive community. We don't tolerate any negativity or any negative comments towards each other. So don't be shy. I'd love to see what you created.
Can you do a quick walkthrough on how do they get the Spaces?
Yes. Yep. So again, let me just show you. Can you see, Nick? Okay. All right. To get through Spaces, from the home feed. Okay. So if you're on the home feed and you enter an artist-led experience, say this one right here. Shirley, did we post? I thought you said an experience.
Oh, no, just.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry. For today, you can browse all the artist-led experiences later in your own time. There's hundreds, plenty. If you go to My Studio, which is where we work today, just to get to Spaces, you can, it doesn't matter what you select, but you just want to get out of this screen. You press Start, and then you see Spaces at the bottom right. Tap Spaces. You can take a picture here. I see you. Post. And boom, there you go. So I would love to see your artwork, like I said, but if you have any questions at all, as you continue to explore the app, remember that there is a little question mark icon at the top right of your screen. You can just tap that to access our support team. Here to help you out whenever. You can reach out to me or Shirley at any time. You can comment on any of my Spaces posts. I'll get the notification. If you have any certain questions for me, happy to answer them. But just know that this will be up on YouTube tomorrow for you if you want a repeat of anything. But how many times can I say and but? Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to draw with me and learn something and practice your skills and enhance your skills and all that good stuff. I hope it was helpful. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope to see you very soon. Bye, guys.